Yo.
What up, though?
I got to talk. I gotta tell what I feel. Gotta talk about my life as I see it.
All right then. It's time for you to bring it to the table.
Turn up your radio wherever you at. We about to bring it.
Street Beat.
With Tony B.
For the next hour, Tony B will give you a chance to tackle local, national, and international issues that affect your community.
Street Beat. Street Beat. Tony.
Welcome to this week's edition of Street Beat right here on Rainier Avenue Radio .world. It's me, Tony B. We're going to be talking about the songs of Black folk. That is the beat of the city. If you don't know, you will know by the time that we finish this conversation. It is truly an honor to have joining me right here in the Columbia City Theater, the home of Rainier Avenue Radio, Reverend Dr. Leslie Braxton. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm sitting next to you, man.
Excited to have this conversation to tell folks about sounds of Black folk. I'm going to give a little information. There's a lot going on this weekend. I want to make sure that everyone knows Juneteenth, the celebration tomorrow. One of the celebrations, many of them happening tomorrow, but we're going to be broadcasting live 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. At the Rainier Beach Plaza with Atlantic Street Center celebrating their 22nd remembrance of Juneteenth and celebration. A lot going on there, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. It will also be the first inaugural Legacy Awards. Awards will be given to members of our community. Eddie Rye Jr., Larry Gossett, Elmer and Aaron Dixon. In addition to that, we have a special guest that is going to be joining us, coming all the way up from, actually from Dallas, but originally Tulsa, Sequina Alexander. Sequina is a descendant of Black Wall Street. Her great-grandfather, James O. Goodwin, was the youngest entrepreneur on Black Wall Street and also started the Oklahoma Eagle, the first Black newspaper in Tulsa. So she'll be coming up to talk about the Juneteenth celebration, what it means to her traditionally for the folks in Tulsa, and the African-American contribution in her own right. Sequina is the first Black female to own an art gallery in the entire state of Oklahoma. Lots of stuff going on. Then at 3:30, we're going to be showing a film here, the Ma'afa Experience. You don't want to miss that either. So we've got a great show planned for you all day on Juneteenth. Then on June 21st, we're going to be doing our Make Music Day celebration. It's a day that we celebrate music worldwide. It's huge in Argentina, Spain, Japan, New York, Austin. It's actually celebrated all over the world, and we're going to be doing it right here in Seattle. We'll have a couple of locations for you. We'll be live from Pier 62 on the waterfront with performances and interactive music activities from noon to 6. From 4 to 10, we'll be live here at the Columbia City Theater doing the same thing right here in South Seattle. Vendors will be at both locations on June 23rd. We'll be having a special documentary showing of the Seattle Black Panther Party documentary that was performed, that was put together by Mr. Greg Allen. So a lot going on, not the least of which songs of Black folk. Join me, Dr. Braxton. Just great to have you here, man. For let's start with this. Rather than me read your bio, let's talk about you, Seattle, your connection to Seattle for anyone who may be unfamiliar, and what you yourself, what you want to say. About yourself, because I have to talk about you and give information on you, an integral part of our communities here and what you've done. And there's so many ways to go with this. And but you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was raised in Tacoma. I was actually born in Boston, but I was a year old when the family moved back to Tacoma. And I'm the son of a 50-year church musician. My mother always wanted to be a concert pianist. When she graduated, an honor roll student from Lincoln High School in 1957, Black women had the choice back then between going to college or getting married, and her family didn't have the means to send her to college, though she had the brains, and so she got married to a good-looking guy who was at Fort Lewis from Boston. That was my dad. He took her over to Boston. After he then got arrested, Mama came home at 21 years of age with, he actually got arrested while she was pregnant with me, so Mama came home at 21 years of age with 3 babies and had to go on public assistance. She got married a few years later, and the same thing happened again. So 5 children now by 29 years of age. This honor roll student who should have gone to the college of her choice, the imperfect world into which she was born, did not fuel her dream of being a concert pianist. What was left of it was the bus of Bach and Beethoven on the piano while she prepared music for church and tried to raise her 5 children. And I was the middle child in that. So I graduated University of Puget Sound. I had enough football in me to get me to college. And then I had my call to ministry. From there, I went to seminary in Rochester, and then I started pastoring in Buffalo, came back in 1999 to succeed Samuel Barry McKinney at Mount Zion, was there 5 years and 10 months till I resigned there to start the work at New Beginnings. And we've grown and billowed from there, and coming out of the pandemic, trying to figure out church life like every other congregation. But me as an individual, I grew up in a home where my mother exposed us to a very eclectic appetite for music. It was both sacred and secular, which is very African-like, because those dichotomies are European in their origin. Africans are fluid like water. And so we had Mahalia Jackson and Sammy Davis Jr. and James Cleveland and James Brown and Aretha Franklin to Kirk Franklin, all going back and forth. And the musicians in our choir who backed up the choir on Sunday played in the clubs on Sunday night. And so I got used to all kinds of music as long as it was good music. And that has fed my ministry, because I'm very likely to quote a Charles A. Tindley hymn, but I'm also likely to quote Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes or Langston Hughes, because it's all in there. It's all free game.
Songs of Black Folk 2023, Music of Resistance and Hope, June 18th, 7 p.m. Thank you, Daniel, our top-notch producer up there. This is a phenomenal event. I want to start with this. What led to creating this event? And I'm just going to hurry up here because I want to make sure that we have time to talk about it. But you put together something amazing in its capacity. And all of the things that you just mentioned earlier are almost here in what you're presenting on June 18th on Sunday.
Absolutely.
Songs of Black Folk. Let's talk about June 18th, 7 p.m. Let's do this. Where can folks get tickets? So they're watching right now. I want to do this real quick before we get into this conversation.
You can go to the Seattle Theater Group, the STG Presents, and get tickets. You can go to songsofblackfolk.org, www.songsofblackfolk.org, one word. And you can get tickets right off of there. So that's probably the easiest way, www.songsofblackfolk.org, or go to the STG or Paramount box offices, and you can get tickets there.
Okay, now this is what is written, is what it said. The audience will be shown how Black musical culture has functioned as both a tool of resistance and as a powerful source of hope for a Black people who've endured 4 centuries of white supremacy, relentless assaults on Black lives. Mm-hmm. That's a powerful statement.
Absolutely, I wrote it.
Tell us what that means. Break that down for us, what folks can anticipate experiencing, feeling, seeing at this event on June 18th.
Let me say this up front. African American music is the soundtrack of our existence. If you lost every book on African American history or American history, in which we are chapters in that, woven in every line, then if you could just gather up the lyrics of our songs, you could virtually reconstruct our total history in this country from our music. This Songs of Black Folk is essentially about how the African music tradition jumped the Atlantic via the slave ships, settled into the soil of the daily lives of an enslaved African people and people of African descent, and then otherwise oppressed after slavery, and how that music evolved into various genres. It went from sorrow songs, field songs, spirituals, to jazz, blues, gospel, R&B, funk, pop, hip hop, rap, and even spoken word. But each one of these genres, if you did a DNA sampling of them, you would see that they function in two ways at their best. Number one is as a tool of political resistance, whether it's insurrectionists like Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, or Gabriel Prosser saying, before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave, go home to be with my Lord and be free, or civil rights marchers saying, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, or Harold Melvin saying, wake up everybody, because the world won't get no better if we just let it be. And as a source of hope to put wind back in our sails when daily depleted by the relentless badgering of white supremacy and anti-Blackness and the messages to us. And so a source of hope, whether it is Charles A. Tinley saying, harder yet may be the fight, right may often yield to might, wickedness a while may reign, Satan's cause may seem to gain, but there is a God that rules above with a powerful arm and a heart of love. And if I'm right, he'll fight our battles, we shall be free someday. Or Tupac Shakur saying, we ain't meant to survive because it's a setup, but even though you're fed up, you got to keep your head up. All of it is to put wind back in our sails. Our music has kept us going.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the performers that folks are going to see here. Phenomenal lineup of talent as well. And I'm just going to let you, I can mention some of the names of Crystal Lakins, and let's talk about some of the performers that are going to be here, and the producer who, put this all, together with obviously the help of a lot of people.
Yeah.
To make this happen. But this is just a huge production. So let's start with that. Who are some of the folks who are going to be there?
Well, first of all, artistic director and orchestra conductor and choir director who wrote the run of show, who literally sat down and wrote each one of these pieces of music for a 50-piece orchestral score.
Say that one more again.
That
50-piece
orchestra. We're going to have a 50-piece orchestra, 7-piece rhythm section, 40-voice choral group, the dancers from the Seattle Ballet, a African rhythm section, a rapper, spoken word artist, all on one stage.
Wow.
And so the artistic director had to think of, when I gave him the concept, then he's got to then develop a run of show with the actual, to flesh it out, put the meat on the bones, to tell a story through music. Then you got to get a team of writers, because if you take a piece like Earth, Wind and Fire's Fantasy, which will be presented as a tribute to fathers, since it is on Father's Day, you got to write that so that the violinist has a line, and the trombonist and the flutist. And so it's got to be written for 50 different instruments. So he had to pull together a team of writers to write all this music for an orchestral score. Then he's got to select a choir, rehearse them over a couple of months, select a 50-piece orchestra, and then rehearse them. And so you got to start with the artistic director, Ramon Bryant Braxton, graduate of Morehouse College, Morgan State, studied under the great Nathan Carter, and also mentored by Darren Atwater, who is one of our special guests. Darren Atwater is the founder of Soulful Symphony, the longest running paid PBS show in history. It's a full orchestra and vocals of complete African American and Hispanic artists. Then you have Solomon Howard, graduate of Morgan State music program. Kennedy Center in 2019 said he was the top bass voice in the world, and also one of the top percussionists. You will see him playing percussion throughout the program. He's returning from last year. wooed the crowd when he stood on the stage for 12 minutes with just a tambourine and a shaker drum, brought the McCall Hall to a frenzy and to their feet. Along with him, you have Crystal Eccles, or Jacqueline Eccles, soaring voice, won an Emmy for her role in Porgy and Bess. Then you have James Conner, Seattle's own, came through Total Experience Choir, product of Pat Wright, trained at the Berklee School of Music in Boston, been working with MGM Studios, traveling throughout Europe, plays like Richard Smallwood, sings like Donny Hathaway or Sam Cooke, dances like Gregory Hines or Sammy Davis Jr. Just an incredibly gifted and all-around individual. Blew up McCall Hall last year when he sang Sam's Cooke, A Change Is Gonna Come. Then you have Crystal Akins, Tacoma native, the winner of the first Sunday's Best. She's going to be in there. She's going to be doing one of the tribute, moving out of the gospel mode, the tribute to Tina Turner, among the other numbers that she is doing. And so they're going to be the featured vocal artists, the 5 featured artists, and
Josephine Howe.
Josephine Howe, who is the Northwest Songbird. Josephine Howe is actually going to be receiving an award, the first recipient of the Pat Wright Performing Arts Excellence Award.
Wow.
And she's going to be lighting it up with that beautiful mezzo alto voice of hers. She never fails to just light up a room. All of these people on one stage, backed up by an orchestra, backed up by a rhythm section, backed up by a 40-voice choir of people from Everett down to Lacey, the best of the Pacific Northwest.
And if that's not enough, MCs.
The MCs, we got Washington State Senator Twana Noble, representing the 28th Legislative District, who's also the president CEO of the Tacoma Urban League, who's also the CEO of the Tacoma Future Co-op Fund and the Black Future Co-op Fund, and Mr. Nate Miles, who is Vice President of Strategic Engagement for the Eli Lilly Foundation and has been on boards from Washington State Business to Tacoma, or to the Boys and Girls Club, to the Seattle Urban League, to the University of Washington Fund, et cetera, et cetera. So these are iconic people in our community. The magic is going to be all over the stage.
That is Sunday, June 18th, Songs of Black Folk 2023. Reverend Braxton, I had to let you get that out. Now I can ask you, putting something like this together, this is a massive project. Mm-hmm. What was your inspiration for pulling something like this together?
I tell people, can you imagine this? I had my first Black classroom professor, excuse me for messing with this, it keeps sliding on my ears. I had my first Black my first Black classroom instructor when I was 24 years old in my second year of graduate school at Colgate Rochester Divinity School.
Wait, one more again, just so folks know. Listen to what he's saying.
I had my first Black classroom teacher.
First.
At 24 years of age in my second year of graduate school. I graduated Tacoma Public Schools, University of Puget Sound, and never had a Black classroom teacher. I had a Black homeroom teacher once, but never had a Black homeroom teacher. I tell my white friends, you want to know what white privilege is? Can you imagine being 24 before you ever have a teacher that looks like you and all of them been Black? That's your worst nightmare. And so as a result, when I went back east, I was startled, one, to see so many more Black people, to see Black institutions. A Black business meant more than just a soul food restaurant. Ain't throwing no shade at that, but Black business developments with architects and doctors and lawyers and accountants and technological people, city councils that were half Black and Black people as mayors and so forth. And so when I came back to the Pacific Northwest, I realized that I grew up in what was kind of an anemic iteration of the Black community here in the Puget Sound, where there's only 50,000 Black people, as opposed to Houston, where there's 1 million Black people in the city limits proper. So the talent pool is deeper. And HBCUs, which refine Black talent, larger Black churches. So my desire has been to drag west of the Mississippi, north of California, world-class fine arts productions that feature African-American talent for the Puget Sound audience, because as Langston Hughes says, one becomes what one beholds. If I can see it, I can be it. But there's so much that you don't see in the Pacific Northwest, which then shapes by default our perceptions of who we are, what we can accomplish, because we don't see it in front of us, the same as if you're in Atlanta, Chicago, New York, DC, Charlotte, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. And so God has blessed me to have access to the people who can help me pull it here to this comfortable, charming cove in the Northwest, so that we can see a different picture, a grander picture of Black elite, world-class talent, concentrated and not diluted.
Songs of Black Folk. That's Sunday, 7 o'clock. Yeah, 7 o'clock. Again, where can you get tickets?
You can get tickets by going to www.songsofblackfolk.org, www.songsofblackfolk.org, or go to STG Presents or the Paramount box office, and you can get those tickets. We have intentionally structured the tickets low, starting at only $30 and capping out at $75. And everybody knows that Paramount, Fifth Avenue, Ben Arroyo, McCall Hall, those tickets normally start closer to 100, go into a couple to several hundred, depending on the production. That's why me and my board had to raise almost $150,000 so that we could bring the ticket structure down, so that we could present this to the broadest possible audience. We didn't want Black folks or people of more modest economic means to be priced out of Songs of Black Folk. That would have been a moral failure.
What is it that you want to, because this is so big, and you talked about the music being the soundtrack to our lives. Mm-hmm. What is it that you are what will make this a success for you is ultimately what I'm getting at. When folks come see this, we go to see good music, good entertainment. We go to get enriched in our soul. What will make this a success for you when folks come into the theater to see this event and then leave?
Correction, aspiration, inspiration. Correction. I'm presenting a picture that is a corrective to what you have thought about Black people, who we are, what our history has been, because we're retelling our story through music. So I am correcting negative myths about who we are through the music. We're telling our story through our song. As Fanny Crosby said, this is my story, this is my song. My song tells my story. So it's a corrective to even your possibilities of, oh, I can aspire to be that. I see classical, I see jazz, I see R&B, I see hip hop, I see spoken word. And so it's a corrective. It's also aspirational. Once I see it, everything in life other than breathing is an acquired taste. If I haven't been exposed to it, I don't develop a taste for it. And so I want little Black boys and Black girls sitting out there growing up in the Northwest to then, because they're exposed to it and hopefully exposed to it every year, over the years in the accumulation of music that I'm exposed to, I develop a taste for dance, for tap, for ballet, for vocal, for musical expertise, instrumental expertise, for conducting, all of that. And so it is aspirational. I can aspire it because it's come into my consciousness, and inspirational because Black people who are hit with relentless microaggressions every day, as my daughter says, they wear us out, Dad. And they come into church on Sunday morning, just want to breathe in the Blackness as well as the gospel. And so it becomes inspirational because, as we said, it's a source of hope. It puts wind back in our sails. Like the song my mom used to sing so often in those hard years, one day at a time, sweet Jesus. That's all that I'm asking from you. So from the music, we draw strength, regardless of what our lot is in life, to be able to go on a little while longer.
My guest, again, iconic is one way to, I guess, frame who you are and what you've done and what you do for members of this community and the role that you play in people's lives. Songs of Black Folk 2023 Music of Hope, Resistance, again at the Paramount Theater, June 18th, 7 o'clock. I want to give you the opportunity for final words here, but again, you know, and this may seem like an obvious question, but what gives you the audacity to say, I'm going to pull something like this off? And I use that word specifically because some folks say, well, that's huge, that's big. How do you say to yourself, this is what I'm going to take and I'm going to actualize my thoughts and manifest them and end up with something, what is it, a 50-piece orchestra, you know, all the different folks who participated. And this is a huge thing. How long does it take you over the course of a year to pull something like this together? That's a bunch of questions. But
well, last year we pulled it off in a few months. This year we did have the benefit of thinking about it more in the off season, and we already have a lot of what we're going to do next year because there's just so much music. The well will never run dry, and it will be fresh every year. But in terms of what made me think I could pull it off, I remember one of my Sunday school teachers, the late Thelma Bryant, used to say, we reach for the moon, we come up with a star. And then she would add as an anecdote, she would say, you know, our problem is not that we reach too high and miss it. Our problem is that we reach so low that even if we achieve it, it has no impact. I don't want to achieve something that doesn't matter. I want to achieve something that when I first say, let's try this, you look at me stunned and say, you done lost your mind. But then as you think about it, after you get over your fear of failure, you say, let's do this. I don't want to chase something that's not worthy of my energies and efforts. I want to be about something that you need a stiff venti cup of some bold coffee and all that caffeine and adrenaline rush to even get your mind around it. Yes, because those are the people who change history, the people who dare to get their mind out of the mental box that has everyone else trapped in ordinariness and familiar. To say, no, we can do different, we can do other, we can do better. And the worst thing that can happen is that we fail in our trying, and what have we lost? But the best thing that can happen is that we become our best, and we create a whole new paradigm. And so since being Black in America, a white supremacist society that for almost 2.5 centuries enslaved and then reinvented slavery de facto and de jure for another whole century, and is hastening backward with dispatch now because people in the panic over the blackening and the browning of our society. To be Black in America is audacious in itself. How dare you decide to live in a society in which the shadow of death has been cast over us since day one? Fannie Lou Hamer once said, a Black woman's body is never quite her own. And we have seen people get shot while Black, pulled over for driving while Black, arrested for walking while Black. Being Black has been, by default and design, criminalized in American society. How dare we decide, having come over a way that with tears has been watered and tread a path through the blood of the slaughter, that we will aspire to go as far as anyone else. In fact, to even exceed in not only accomplishment, but in character, our captors. For you, Tony B, to be Black in America, which means sociologically by any metric, you were born at risk, but to take on the risk and excel anyway to become a voice and a bolt of light in the Northwest. How dare you do that, not just lay down and die? Because life's been telling you from the day you were born, just lay down and die. And we say, hell no, we're going to live. We're going to live. To be Black in America is audacious. So everything we ought to do ought to be about that same thing.
I want to give you the opportunity here for final words. Anything that you'd like to share with our audience, whether it be about Sunday or just any messaging, the floor is yours.
I would say to everybody out there that, Jesus tells this parable about a great banquet feast. It is the most sumptuous delights that one could experience, put them all on one table and then announce all things are made ready. the banquet host took great care in what he cooked, what he grew, what he slaughtered, what he prepared, for the enrichment, the edification of all who would come and consume it. And then when he announced that all things were made ready, everybody had excuses why not to come because of things that were legitimate but ordinary. And then the banquet host says, this is too good to be wasted. It says, so he went out into the highways and the byways. The moral of the story is that the ordinary always pulls. So we have to understand that we have to have the will to discern when it is time to put ourselves in a place to experience the extraordinary, to be inspired, to be transformed, to have our minds altered. And Songs of Black Folk Sunday night, no matter who you are, whether you was born on the mountaintop in the valley, this experience is going to transform you. It is going to excite you, enlighten you. You're going to laugh. You're going to cry. You're going to mourn. The ancestors are going to descend in that place, and they're going to show up. But I tell everybody, prepare yourself to be inhabited by bygone generations. Those whose bodies were cast over ships and lay in the bottom of the Atlantic. Those who had to stay a step ahead of the bloodhound on the trail of the runaway slave. Every woman who was subjected to a daily regimen of rape in a slavocracy. Every young man whose body washed up along some lonely river bank or dangled from the branch of some buried tree. Their voices cannot go unheard, but the only voice they will have is ours. So we have to be open vessels for the inhabitation of the ancestors, and we will know when they show up. They'll show up in our tears. They will show up in our applause. They will show up in our conviction to do better and to go further. That's what I want to see happen.
My guest, Reverend Dr. Leslie Braxton, Songs of Black Folk 2023. Again, this Sunday, June 18th at the Paramount Theater, 7 p.m. Get your tickets. You don't want to miss it. Thank you for what you do in our communities, and thank you for brainstorming this event for us to be able to celebrate this weekend. We appreciate you.
Thank you for letting me come and hang out. Leslie B with Tony B.
That's it for this edition of Street Beat. That's all the time I have. That's going to do it for the kid. Again, June 18th, Songs of Black Folks at the Paramount Theater. This is Tony B saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.